Welcome. Let's continue with chapter 25 from our textbook, focusing now on the urinary tract. The ureters are the tubes that extend from the kidneys to the urinary bladder. Um, they extend from the renal pelvis here in the middle of the kidney to the posterior of the bladder. They're about 20 to 30 centimeters long and about 3 to 4 millimeters in diameter. The urinary bladder is a hollow muscular sac that stores urine before it's eliminated. Size and shape varies depending on the amount of urine that it's holding, and it is located posterior to the pubic symphysis. The urethra is this thin wall tube that carries urine from the bladder to the outside of the body. It is pumped outside of the body using peristalsis. The internal urethral sphincter, is here, this little structure here, this sphincter muscle, is an involuntary muscle that keeps the urethra closed most of the time. Urethral lengths vary. In females, they are 3 to 4 centimeters long with an external opening that lies anterior to the vagina. In males, they're approximately 20 centimeters long and they pass through the penis. Uh, Micturition, also called voiding or urination, is the flow of urine. It's controlled by these two sphincters here. There are stretch receptors within the bladder wall that trigger bladder contractions when the bladder is full and urine is forced past the internal sphincter A here, um, and then through the external sphincter where there is some voluntary skeletal muscle control. Maintaining homeostasis. Let's take a look at how the kidneys maintain blood composition. One of the key factors for the kidneys is to excrete nitrogen-containing waste. That's waste mostly from proteins in the diet. Maintaining water balance, maintaining electrolyte balance, and controlling blood pH. The plasma, if you take blood and you spin it in a test tube, you'll get the red blood cells at the bottom. This is called the hematocrit. In between the red blood cells and the plasma is a layer of white blood cells and platelets sit here on top. And then at the top is the plasma. The plasma is the water, the proteins, and the various nutrients, things like amino acids, glucose, and so forth, that are found in blood. Um, the kidneys are also responsible for maintaining blood pressure. Body fluids, the majority of water in the body is found in the following locations: intracellular fluid, that's fluid within cells, and then extracellular fluids, and interstitial, which are composed of interstitial fluids, that's fluids in between a variety of different organs, in blood plasma, and in lymph in the lymphatic system, which is a separate system from the blood system. Water enters and leaves the body. So there's water intake from drinking and also from eating. Ingestion of food and beverages increases water intake. And then there's output. Water output includes urine, it includes sweat. You exhale some water, and there is some water in feces. Maintaining the water balance is the role of the kidneys. They play the primary role, and the kidneys control the osmolarity or the concentration of electrolytes within the blood plasma. They do so by controlling how much water is absorbed in the nephron, how much sodium is released by the kidneys, and released by the body as urine. Antidiuretic hormone, we talked about this in our last class. It is produced by the hypothalamus. It is released in response to high solute concentration, that's high sodium concentration in blood plasma, and it causes the kidneys to reabsorb more water by placing aquaporin in the collecting ducts. And this allows a person to produce more concentrated urine and therefore conserve water. The electrolytes that are of key importance in our bodies are sodium, potassium, bicarbonate, and chloride, which balances these sodium ions. The correct amount and proportion is very important to the functions of the body. It's very important to have the correct sodium and potassium balance to enable your body to get the correct water balance. System signals are controlled by, again, sodium and potassium. Muscle contractions are controlled by sodium and potassium, and also by the pH, which is regulated by hydrogen ions and bicarbonate. The kidneys control the concentrations of these ions pretty closely. The urine, the blood as well is also kept in a very narrow pH range. If cells exit this pH range, it becomes very dangerous. The cells can die quite rapidly. So it's essential that the body's pH is balanced. The kidneys maintain this tight range for blood pH by excreting hydrogen ions or by conserving bicarbonate ions, these counter ions. Yeah. So the kidneys also control blood pressure. If the blood pressure is high, kidneys reduce reabsorption of water to reduce blood volume and therefore blood pressure. If the blood pressure is low, the kidneys produce the enzyme renin, which triggers a series of reactions, the angiotensin aldosterone system that constrict blood vessels and raise blood pressure. Uh, Renin angiotensin aldosterone system, one of the hormones that is produced when the renin angiotensin aldosterone system is activated is, of course, aldosterone. This is a steroid hormone that is produced by the adrenal cortex. The adrenals, of course, are those little um, pyramidal shaped structures on the top of your kidneys. Primary function is to regulate salt and water balance. The presence of aldosterone increases the reabsorption of sodium, which increases blood volume and therefore increases blood pressure. So when you inhibit the renin angiotensin aldosterone system by inhibiting angiotensin converting enzyme, that reduces the amount of aldosterone and therefore will lower blood pressure. Let's take a look at some diseases and disorders of the urinary system. One of the more common congenital or inherited defects of the kidneys is polycystic kidney disease. Polycystic kidneys have cysts that develop within the cortex of the kidney. It looks like these cyst structures on the top of the kidneys here. The kidneys, with the development of these cysts and scarring from cysts over time, lose function, and this may result in kidney failure in the long term. Kidney stones are another common disorder that is associated with kidneys. There can be mineral deposits that form within the kidneys, blocking function of the kidneys, blocking either the ureter or blocking the pelvis of the kidneys. And these kidney stones here can be very painful. Some stones may be broken up with sound waves. There are surgical procedures to remove stones, and some stones will pass of their own accord with increased fluid intakes. The urinary tract can become prone to infection by the urethra. It's possible for bacteria to enter the bladder. Bacterial infection of the urinary tract is very painful. The symptoms are often strong urges to urinate and burning sensation during urination. It's typically treated with antibiotics. Inflammation is called cystitis. Incontinence is another disease associated with the urinary tract. That's the inability to hold urine in the bladder. Some common causes include pressure on the bladder, sometimes from coughing or laughing, lifting something heavy, Sometimes this can cause temporarily incontinence, a sudden intense urge to urinate followed by an involuntary loss of urine. That's incontinence. Urinary retention, on the other hand, can occur particularly in uh, elderly men where the prostate is a gland found in men that surrounds the urethra. As men age, the prostate continues to grow and it can become large enough that it can occlude or block the ureter. And most commonly, an enlarged prostate gland makes it difficult for the individual to urinate. This is called urinary retention. It can be treated. Benign prostate hyperplasia can be treated with drugs to help uh, reduce the overgrowth of the prostate and enable urine to flow. When the kidneys become damaged, it may be necessary to take the purification process uh, off board, and in that case, it's a process called dialysis. Dialysis involves the use of a machine that filters the blood. This is used in patients that have lost most of their kidney function. Um, it's a very time-intensive, demanding, and painful uh, condition, and average life expectancy for people on dialysis is only 5 to 10 years. An alternative to dialysis is kidney transplant. However, there are not enough kidney transplant organs available for the people that need them. It is the most common organ of transplant. There are about 20,000 of these each year. Um, uh, Often, the cause of kidney failure is high blood glucose. The glucose can damage the kidneys and raise blood pressure, leading to damage and kidney failure, renal failure, requiring transplant. Typically, a transplant occurs by taking a healthy kidney and transplanting it in with its own blood supply here, with a blood supply here to support the function of the damaged and failing kidneys. So this third kidney will take some of the pressure off the damaged kidneys. Of course, it's essential that the person gets their blood glucose and their blood pressure under control with a transplanted kidney. Let's take a look at some developmental aspects of the urinary system. Kidney function. Um, One of the things about kidney function is that if they don't work well, they don't remove waste from your blood. Waste products will start to be measured in your blood more easily. One of the common waste products that gets measured is creatinine. If this is elevated in your blood, that is an indicator that your blood is not being filtered correctly by your kidneys. Creatinine is a waste product made by your muscles with exercise. Your doctor can check your creatinine levels. This is different from creatine, which is a supplement, although creatine can be metabolized into creatinine. Creatinine levels in your blood is one of the ways to check to see how well your kidneys are working. So if creatinine is becoming elevated in your blood, um, then you know that your kidneys are not functioning properly. So the creatinine levels are used to estimate the glomerular filtration rate. That's how well your glomeruli or your kidneys are filtering your blood and cleaning your blood. So yeah, let's take a look at this. This is an image of the glomerulus. This is a look at the glomerular endothelial cells, which contains this fenestration or these pores that are involved in the filtration of blood in the glomerulus. Um, the basal lamina of the glomerulus prevents filtration of very large proteins. So there's another layer here that prevents filtration of larger proteins. So just small solutes can squeeze through this filter. Um, and there are membranes between the cells that prevent filtration of medium-sized proteins as well. But it's this uh, pores, these glomeruli on these glomerular endothelial cells that are responsible for, in large part, for the filtration of waste products. Okay, so let's take a quick look at this video, which explains glomerular filtration rate, how to measure glomerular filtration rate, and when to be worried about glomerular filtration rate.
In this video, we're going to be looking at glomerular filtration rate, a process that happens in the nephron of the kidney, but we're going to do it in a simple way so anyone can understand. So let's do it. What's up, bio nerds? Leslie Samuel here, and in the last video, we looked at the nephron. We looked at it as the functional unit of the kidney and where the filtration, the reabsorption, the secretion, and elimination is basically happening. If you missed that, please go and check it out because there's great stuff there. A link to that and other resources in the description below. In this video, we're going to look at one part of that process, and that is what is happening in the glomerulus. Now, as a reminder, here we're looking at the nephron. And with the nephron, what we have is the afferent arteriole bringing blood into the nephron, into the glomerulus. You can see that structure right here. And from there, the blood leaves via the efferent arteriole. Now, what's happening in that glomerulus is a very important part of the process because that is where the filtration is taking place. If you look at the walls of the glomerulus, you'll see that it's permeable. It allows certain things to get through. But those openings aren't huge. So it's not going to get larger molecules like big proteins or larger structures like blood cells get out. If it's letting those things get out, then there's a problem and that needs to be evaluated. It's going to let certain waste products out. And that's exactly what we want. As you can imagine, if we affect the amount of pressure inside the glomerulus, you're going to affect the glomerular filtration rate. The rate of filtration in the glomerulus. Now, this diagram gives you kind of like a simplified version of what is actually taking place. So once again, we have the afferent arteriole leading into the glomerulus, and you can see those red arrows showing you filtration taking place so that the filtrate is then going via the Bowman's capsule and continuing on throughout the nephron. If any of that is confusing to you, please check out the video right before this one. And as you can imagine, there are certain situations in which we want that filtration rate to be higher, to get rid of more. And there are certain situations where we want to hold on to more of the stuff, so we want that glomerular filtration rate to go down. The question is, how do we influence this rate? Let's look at an even simpler illustration of this. So here we have an attempt at me illustrating the afferent arteriole coming up right here, going into this glomerulus. So I'm really simplifying the structure of the glomerulus right here, and then going down the efferent arteriole. Okay, so on this side, afferent, that side over there, we have the efferent, and in between here, we have a simple version of the glomerulus. And I want you to imagine that that glomerulus is permeable. It allows certain things to get out. The blood is coming in, it's going through the glomerulus, and because of the pressure that's in that glomerulus, we're going to have filtration taking place. So let's say this is the amount of filtration that's happening. How do we increase or decrease the amount of filtration? Have you ever had a hose that had water going through it and then you squeeze on one end? Well, depending on the end that you squeeze, if you squeeze the end that comes after the hold, what is going to happen to the pressure in that section? It's going to build up. And as that pressure builds up, it's going to force more out of, if there's a little opening, it's going to force more water out of that little opening. It's the same thing here. So imagine then, if on the end of the efferent arteriole over there, we make the diameter smaller. Somehow we adjust the diameter of that. What's that going to do to the pressure in the glomerulus? It is going to increase the pressure in the glomerulus. And as a result, we're going to have more filtration taking place. Now, on the other end, if we decrease the diameter of the afferent arteriole, there's going to be less stuff, less blood going into the glomerulus. And as a result of that, you're going to have less pressure, and then you're going to have less filtration. So the glomerular filtration rate is going to be significantly reduced if you reduce the diameter of the afferent arteriole. Now, because these are arterioles, we actually have some smooth muscle in the walls of these arterioles. And by constricting or relaxing the walls, the muscle in the walls of those arterioles, we can influence the diameter. And that is how we influence the glomerular filtration rate. So in the glomerulus, that is where the filtration is happening. And if we want to increase or decrease the glomerular filtration rate, we have to affect the diameter of those vessels that are either leading to or away from the glomerulus. Does that make sense? Of course it does. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next video.
So why do we care about glomerular filtration rate? Higher glomerular filtration rates equate to better kidney function. That'd be the sort of green functioning over here. Lower glomerular filtration rates equates to worse kidney function. And as kidney function gets worse and worse, it can ultimately decline so far that you lead to kidney failure, which is where a person will need either a kidney transplant or would need to go onto dialysis treatment. Low filtration rate kidney failure, and so we need to know how your kidneys are functioning, and that it's important to keep them in a healthy range. Why do we care about glomerular filtration rates? Higher glomerular filtration rates equate to better kidney function. Lower equates to worse kidney function. You would like your kidney function to be here in the normal range. As it declines with kidney disease, people typically become more sick. And when the kidneys are no longer functioning sufficiently, that can lead to kidney failure. This is where a person would need a kidney transplant or to go on to dialysis treatment. This is a life-threatening condition. Hypertension and kidney failure. Hypertension and kidney failure. Doctors often treat high blood pressure with drugs including angiotensin-converting enzyme inhibitors. These are drugs that lower blood pressure and help to maintain proper kidney function. ACE inhibitors needed to prevent kidney failure. Again, they can do so by protecting the glomerula and the kidneys. Here's a quick summary of high blood pressure, the kidneys, and angiotensin converting inhibitors. There's a video here that you can watch if you'd like some further information. But the sympathetic nervous system, and blood pressure, decreased blood pressure, and decreased sodium in the distal tubule will all signal to the kidney to produce renin. Renin activates angiotensinogen into angiotensin 1. The angiotensin converting enzyme then turns angiotensin 1 into angiotensin 2. Angiotensin 2 will then talk to the adrenal cortex. It will talk to the brain. It will raise aldosterone. It will raise antidiuretic hormone. And both of these two things will increase blood volume, increase arterial pressure, and increase stroke volume. Okay, let's have a look at the function of the renin angiotensin aldosterone system in a little bit more detail with this video.
Renin angiotensin aldosterone system. The renin angiotensin aldosterone system is a classic endocrine system that helps to regulate long-term blood pressure and extracellular volume in the body. The system begins with the release of angiotensinogen into circulation by the liver. This may be in response to low blood pressure and adverse changes in sodium concentrations. An enzyme, renin, is secreted which cleaves angiotensinogen to form the inactive decapeptide angiotensin 1. Further transformation of angiotensin is carried out by angiotensin converting enzyme, or ACE. This is predominantly found in the pulmonary circulation. However, ACE is also produced in the vascular endothelium of many tissues, including the kidney, adrenal gland, brain, and heart. The angiotensin converting enzyme converts the inactive precursor angiotensin 1 into the vasoactive peptide angiotensin 2. In addition, alternative pathways exist that do not rely on either renin or ACE. In non-renin pathways, enzymes like tonin and cathepsin D release angiotensin 1 from angiotensinogen and tissue plasminogen activator, or TPA, and can make angiotensin 2 directly from angiotensinogen. This bypasses the midway production of angiotensin 1. Angiotensin converting enzyme also degrades bradykinin, which is required for synthesis of a major vasodilator, nitric oxide. Angiotensin 2 binds AT1 receptors expressed on the surface of vascular endothelium and impairs nitric oxide synthesis as well. Reduced bioavailability of nitric oxide combined with the stimulation of AT1 receptors on smooth muscle cells causes vasoconstriction. In addition to a vasoconstriction effect, stimulation of AT1 receptor causes the adrenal glands to release the hormone aldosterone, resulting in sodium retention. Combined with vasoconstriction, this increases blood pressure. In the final stages of RAS, the kidney reduces the production of renin. Most of the known actions of angiotensin 2 are mediated through the AT1 receptors, which can be found in the kidney, heart, vascular smooth muscle cells, brain, adrenal glands, platelets, adipocytes, and the placenta.
Yeah, so there you have it. It's quite a complicated system, but the main thing to take away from that is that ACE inhibitors inhibit conversion of angiotensin 1 into angiotensin 2, and angiotensin converting by inhibiting angiotensin converting enzyme. So these drugs help to lower blood pressure to maintain proper kidney function. Um, ACE inhibitors can sometimes cause side effects in people, and for that reason, there are angiotensin receptor blockers, ARBs. And angiotensin receptor blockers block that angiotensin 1 receptor that angiotensin 2 is binding to. So that's another way that blood pressure can be lowered. Instead of using an ACE inhibitor, you can use a receptor blocker.